when this first started, it was going to be a 20-minute talk, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to compound this into 20-minute talk? And then Autumn texts me later, hey, we need to make it 15. I'm like, well, good grief. Like, how can I? So there's some of the stuff that I've just got to fly through. There's some of it that, if there's time at the end, cool, we can stick around for a few minutes. And there's some of it, like, if you feel overwhelmed and you need to talk about this again, text Kim, let's get a date on the calendar. Please just come to our house, let us make you a meal, and let's just talk about it. Okay, I'm gonna
do that for an activity.
I'm totally down. 100% we are down for that. Like, that's awesome. I did have a patient ask me to record this. That's why there's a camera. Microphone didn't work on the last one, so I'm doing it again because I replaced the batteries because I brought extra batteries. How about that? So some of you may get the impression in this that I'm anti-medicine. I want you to know that I'm not anti-medicine. I am very pro good medicine. Hey, good medicine saved my life about 12 years ago when I had testicular cancer. Without good modern medicine, I would not be on this planet. Same for you, Becky. My future daughter-in-law puts her finger on sideways. Good medicine is awesome. But what I am against is bad medicine, and that we have a serious problem in this country of completely ignoring the nutritional component of medicine, when the reality is most of the chronic diseases that we face can be dealt with at the grocery store, not at the pharmacy. As I was just before I came in tonight, I came across a thing I wanted to share with you, and it's just a saying that says, didn't we all notice that something was terribly wrong when obesity rates tripled in the US and childhood cancer rates increased by 60% over the past 40 years? Something's wrong. Hey, and if you look at the numbers, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but this whole thing lines out exactly how medical training is failing at helping these doctors understand and appreciate the power that nutrition has. They just don't have the classes. And they don't have the time because they're spending this time learning these amazing life-saving techniques. But what happens after a surgery? What should a patient eat when they get a knee replacement? Or if their thyroid is out of whack, how can we deal with that with food rather than just throwing medications at it to give it a Band-Aid effect? Okay. If you look at the top, this is from 2019. This is the top 10 causes of death in the country. 2019 and 2020, we have an outlier, right? So we get this COVID thing that hits. And if you look at what the true causes of death were in those cases, COVID actually caused all these underlying conditions to surface, and that's what actually killed people versus the actual disease itself. Hey, but if you go back to about 1960, this list doesn't change. It stays the same for decades. That should tell you that something's drastically wrong. If we had more time, I would go through and make a very strong argument for 8 out of 9 of these things being related to the standard American diet, or as I like to abbreviate, SAD, because it is sad. Okay? You look at what the government has been teaching as the food pyramid. This is what was healthy when I was a kid. This thing's upside down, backwards, and just flat wrong. In fact, it's got sponsorship written all over it. Hey, Harvard tried to change it and make it better. I think they still failed. And then lastly, we have what we have now is the food plate. Okay, so if you took this out and took this is funny to me. It's almost like dairy was late to the party. So the dairy advocates, or the dairy, what's the word I'm looking for? Lobbyists showed up with their money and said, hey guys, you forgot to include us. Can you just kind of put us hovering out here like a glass of milk? Hey, again, this thing has sponsorship written all over it. And to me, it's about 40% better than it was, but it's still wrong. Hey, this is a list of chronic diseases and symptoms that are highly associated with gluten sensitivity and with food sensitivity. Every case that I've seen in the last 15 years either never got told it was a gluten sensitivity, so when I talked to them about it, their minds were blown, or gluten testing was done at the very end as a last resort, and I think it's sad. I think it should be a first thing that they start testing for, and they need to start using the right tests. But I'm not going to go down. Did they actually do the biopsy?
So gluten was the last thing they tested. They did the lab, and then they did the scope.
Was it positive? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Because that test sucks. When it's positive, but it's wrong about 25% of the time.
Oh yeah, well,
so,
they didn't follow that. They did the scope after that.
Okay, we'll talk more.
Yeah, we'll have
But look at the symptoms. Brain, headache, migraine, chronic fatigue, skin. I'm just going to say rashes and not go through that list. You would think it would just be intestinal, but infertility, PCOS, none of these clinics test for this stuff. Hey, joint and muscle, pain and swelling, bloating. I added to this weight gain, thyroid, arthritis, sleep disorders, autoimmune disorders. Kim's got a crazy story about her lupus symptoms. You would never know that woman has lupus. Hey, hormone imbalances, ADD, ADHD, neurodegenerative disorders, brain fog, depression, anxiety, chronic sinus infections. The gut, the tissue in your gut looks almost identical to the tissue in your sinuses. So when your gut is inflamed, guess what happens? Your sinuses get inflamed. Okay? Type 2 diabetes, the list goes on and on. All from food sensitivities that no one looks at. And people think that I'm crazy for bringing it up. Okay? So what the freak do I eat? This is the most common thing that I get, right? We start talking about it and people are like, oh my gosh, what do I eat? Hey, well, here it is. God food heals, man food kills. This is from a dear friend of mine, Dr. Andy Barlow. He wrote that book. It's on Amazon for like $12. There's no excuse for you to not have that book in your home. Well, now there is, because you didn't know it existed until 30 seconds ago. But his favorite saying and mine is, God food is the way God intended food to be. The stuff growing up out of the ground, the stuff hanging from the trees, the birds flying through the air, the fishes in the seas, and all the beasts that are out there in the field. They're all there for us. We were given dominion over them. He gave us these sharp, pointy teeth for a reason. The problem is that man wanted to figure out how to profit more from that. So they take all that stuff and they hybridize it, they change it, they add chemicals to it to get it to grow faster, stronger, and fatter, give it to us so that we get addicted to it, so we buy more and more, and as all of a sudden man food becomes financially driven, not nutritionally driven. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Okay. We need to go back and start focusing on organic foods. Now, there are lists out there that we have that talk about some foods. You know, there are foods out there that you don't have to worry about organic, but there are foods that you definitely should. We have those lists. Reach out to us. We'll be happy to get them to you. But we need to start looking at, beef, fish, poultry, pork. We live in an awesome area because we have members of our ward that you can get just free-range beef, and it's awesome. Okay? We have eggs, nuts, and seeds. If you want to Google Paleo or Whole30, I just gave you guys a huge compliment. Now you're just walking in. I'm totally teasing you. Hey, I was saying how awesome your beef is, and it's actually healthy, and you should eat it and eat a lot of it.
I agree.
So, there's a lot of stuff about paleo diets out there. The Whole30 diet's awesome. There's so much stuff. If you start Googling that, you're going to go down Pandora's box. Your mind's going to get blown. And then you're going to be calling us going, okay, where do I start? Okay. And then, of course, fruits and veggies. Everything you've heard about fruits and veggies is true. We just have to define what actually is a veggie, because corn is not a vegetable. It is a government-subsidized grain designed to
Make you fat.
make you fat. Because how do we fatten up cattle?
Grain.
We feed them grain. Thank you for saying that.
Except for the grain causes less inflammation than the corn does. Yeah.
Very true. Okay. But we take the corn, turn it into a fake sugar, and put it into all the other stuff, because guess what? It's addictive, and you want to keep buying more and more of it. Okay. My definition of junk food is this: is if it comes in a wrapper, it is junk food. Okay. But here's a little principle I'm going to teach you. Learn how to read labels. So when you pick up a food at the grocery store and it's got a label, if there are more than about 3 or 4 ingredients, put it back. Okay.
You shop the outside perimeter.
Exactly. That outside perimeter has more value to your health than the pharmacy ever will. Hey, if you look at that label and there's stuff in there that you cannot pronounce, don't eat it. Okay, that's the definition of junk food. This step right here is something that you can go home and implement right now. That is to get rid of the bad oils and start buying the good ones. Hey, when COVID hit and everybody panic bought everything at the grocery store, they took all of the oils that are bad for you and left the healthy ones. Hey, but the bad oils are vegetable oil, canola oil, seed oil, peanut oil, and fake butter like margarine. This stuff oxidizes very quickly in your body, spikes inflammation levels like you wouldn't believe, and causes your immune system to go berserk. I promise you that if you go home and donate any of this to the food tribe or throw it out and then replace it with extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, butter, or ghee, your family will never know the difference.
Yes, they will. They feel better.
You will not hear any griping from your family. Okay? Avoid dairy. I know this is a big shock to some of you because there are proteins in dairy that are addictive, but there are some great dairy alternatives out there. I just contradicted myself too because I said butter was good for you, right? Okay? But here's the thing. When they pasteurize dairy, they heat it up, they kill all the enzymes in it that your body needs to break the proteins down, and then they give it to you. So if switching your family to things like almond milk and cashew cheese is mind-numbing for you, then at least switch to the raw organic stuff. It's available at our grocery stores. Your body will be much happier if you go that way. Okay? Avoiding grains. Healthy whole grains is a marketing scheme that they put on cereal boxes. There's no such thing. Okay, I get the argument all the time that wheat is for man, and yes, wheat was for man. The problem is we spray it with all sorts of chemicals now, and those chemicals are killing our gut bugs and causing cancer. If you don't believe me, watch TV for a couple hours, and you will see a commercial for class action lawsuits that are now getting filed against Monsanto because they gave us Roundup, and now we're figuring out those links, and they're in trouble.
They've already changed it, by the way.
Have they?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
It's still not good for you.
It's progress.
We can argue that.
Hey, so I'm not going to take time to really launch into sugar and fake sugar. Y'all already know that sugar is not good for you. Hey, sugar is actually what's making us gain weight. Sugar is causing all the inflammation that's causing things like heart disease. But hey, we have pills for cholesterol, so just take these pills, you'll be fine. It's not the case. It's inflammation that's doing that. Hey, but when it comes to soda, it needs to go. Okay, and the way I like to look at it is if you look at the size of a sugar beet, they're about this big, and it takes about 12 sugar beets to make a can of soda, or how many ever ears of corn it is for high fructose corn syrup. But if you think about it, how long would it take you to eat 12 sugar beets that are this big?
You can't. Too much fiber in them.
You'd be sick, is my point.
Yeah.
Yet we can take a soda, and how long does it take to drink a soda? And that takes our blood sugar levels and just spikes the living daylights out of them. Our insulin levels go berserk. When our insulin level goes berserk, guess what happens to our bodies? That's what makes you gain weight. Hey, diet soda, not much better. Diet soda is full of stuff that will disrupt your hormone receptors. It will. There's been actual links to it causing cancer. It's not good. So my rule is water, and you take your body weight, divide that by 2. That's the number of ounces that you should be drinking a day. Last but not least is to get your butt moving. Exercise is huge. Okay, 40 minutes of exercise 5 days a week will actually cause your cells to grow more insulin receptors so they can readily accept sugar or glucose into the cell faster. And that helps your glucose metabolism immensely. Not only that, but we're now also understanding that good muscle tone actually helps with hormone balance. I do this because it's actually your big muscles like your gluteus maximus that actually helps with hormone balance. And there's also a lot of stuff coming out about immune function and muscle tone. How cool is that? In fact, there's a lot of things there's a lot of data coming out that's suggesting that people that are frail, that don't have good muscle tone, are the ones that didn't survive the pandemic. The ones that did survive had much better muscle tone. Fascinating, isn't it? Okay. I got a couple books for you to read, just so you know I'm not the only one that's crazy, the crazy one that's teaching this stuff. Grain Brain from Perlmutter's fantastic. You liked it, did you? It's mind-blowing.
There's a lot to it. I think I've read it like twice. And I still have it.
We have a copy too. If you want to borrow ours, you're more than welcome. But also the Great Cholesterol Myth will also open your eyes to a lot of what's happening behind the scenes, because eating healthy and eating nutritious really has nothing to do with the number of calories that you eat, but the quality of calories that you eat. I did it in under 15 minutes.
Oh, you're done?